I'm Chris Barker.
And I'm Will Betts, and this is a very special edition of the Music Tech My Forever Studio podcast at guitar.com live.
In this podcast, we speak with producers, DJs, audio engineers, and industry figureheads about their fantasy forever studio.
The studio will have to be imagined within our semi-strict rules, and importantly, our guests will have to live with it forever.
But what are these rules? Well, our guests can select a computer, a DAW, and an audio interface first, then they can only choose 6 other bits of studio kit plus 1 luxury item.
Quick question though, Chris. What if somebody thinks they found a loophole in our foolproof system and wants to choose a collection of plugins as a single item?
No bundles. No bundles!
But specking out his Forever Studio today is rock production genius Romesh Dodangoda. Having made records with Motörhead, Funeral for a Friend, Bring Me the Horizon and Twin Atlantic, he knows a thing or two about capturing impactful guitars and sculpting the perfect tone in the studio.
Romesh's Longwave studio in Cardiff is absolutely jam-packed with guitars, amp heads, mics, and virtually every conceivable bit of studio hardware, so he might have a bit of a tough time slimming his rig down to only the 6 items we allow him.
So, with a heavy nod to the world of guitar recording, let's discover Romesh's Forever Studio.
Welcome, Romesh. Welcome
Hello.
to the My Forever Studio podcast. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we
Very
are
well,
good.
very well.
We are good. Remotely doing our thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you heard the rules there. I mean, does it sound like a scary prospect? I mean, look at all that kit behind you. What stacks of gear? Imagine how we're going to slim that down to just 6 items.
I've got to pick 6, have I?
Yes.
Yep, that's a conceit.
As you heard in the rules there, we give you 3 free ones to start with. So, but before we get to the sort of the free items, let's talk about the vibe of the studio. I mean, we can see the studio, your studio behind you. I mean, studios come in different shapes and sizes and forms and vibes and decor. I mean, what's your vibe? And if you could have a studio anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I mean, I guess when I built this place, it was just for me. So, for, like, everything that I want to use is all set up. I don't have to worry about having it set for anyone else coming in, really. So I just want, I wanted to build somewhere which had a vibe where, like, it had lots of amps, it had lots of drums, and the whole idea being that, as a band, when you come here, you're not stuck with the gear that you've got. You can try different things. So, like, I love the fact, like, when we do guitar recording, it's like if one amp's not working, it's just like, oh, we'll just try another one. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of the vibe of this place, really. In terms of if I could build a studio anywhere,
the fantasy forever studio. Let's. So we're building the studio now, and where's it going to be?
Probably LA, because I love the weather there.
Okay.
Yeah.
What part of LA? I mean, we're talking Hollywood Hills mansion, or we're talking grimy downtown basement, or
It's got to be somewhere fancy, I think.
Are we talking? Oh, this has got to be like in the middle of the Hollywood Hills. I'm picturing you sort of overlooking the whole of Los Angeles with the haze. You've got like an underpinned mid-century sort of modernist place with a couple of swimming pools. Is what I'm thinking. Is similar vibes?
Will's
fine.
our resident realtor. He's our resident realtor. Just giving you the sell there. Did you see that? Like, sold you that dream straight away.
I'd be okay with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And what about shapes and sizes? Because obviously you're recording guitars, and live bands and such. I mean, what's the importance of the live room in that situation? And what kind of live room do you like? I mean, how lively do you like it?
So my live room here is like a pretty decent size. I can put a band in together, and then we have there's another room as well. So there's basically a live room, this control room, and then there's a second control room which doubles as another live. So I can isolate a singer or anything like that. Live rooms for me, especially in rock music, is huge. It's because it's drums. For me, everything with rock music is based around that drum sound. And if you get my whole kind of idea is if you can get the drum sounding amazing, everything else just kind of falls on top really easily. So yeah, I mean, like live rooms are really important to me for, especially for drum recording, just to capture the ambience. And
so if you could steal a live room that you know about in the world and put it in your dream LA Forever studio, what studio has the live room that you've worked in or that you've heard on records that you think that's perfect?
I think it's got to be Rockfield,
Okay.
which is actually only 45 minutes away from here, but their rooms are just magical. There's just something about them. I can't even work out what it is, but you just put the mics, around, and you just pull the faders up, and it's like, wow, that's it's incredible.
Perfect. So we've got a studio in LA with Rockfield's live room jammed in it. That sounds pretty good already.
That'd be perfect, yeah.
And that's going to be important for your sound then, because you've got so few items. The room is going to have to be absolutely the sound that you're going to capture, because unless you're going to get several microphones as part of your 6, this is going to be a tricky thing. Before we get there, what about computer? We give you a free computer and DAW of your choice. What's it going to be, Mac or PC?
I am definitely Team Mac, because I just love the OS. I've had over the years. I used to be on PC for ages. I had loads of problems. So at least like the Mac thing, like it's made to a standard, so less can go wrong. In terms of DAW, I use Steinberg Nuendo.
Interesting.
Which I've used since like since the beginning really.
And why staying with Nuendo and not Cubase? Because they overlap a lot more than they ever used to now.
I think I've just stayed in that lane really. I like when I was starting out, I was on Cubase, from Cubase 5, and then I think it was SX. I went through all that. I even had it on an Atari.
Yes, nice. Yeah, you could still do that if you want to. If you want to go back,
still do that. Yeah,
go back.
Any desire?
No. But I like Nuendo's just been rock solid for me, and I think for me, it's more important that I don't have to think about the DAW. Like when I'm working on a session, I don't want to be thinking about how do I do that. Like I know the keyboard shortcuts so easily. So it's just basically one last thing for me to think about when I'm working.
And you're mainly using it just for tracking, right? I mean, do you do much MIDI and programming, and like do you dig in with it much, or is it more of like
I mainly, I mean, I do all my tracking and mixing in it, but yeah, I mean, sometimes we'll do some programming and stuff in it as well. Yeah.
Okay. And then your final sort of the 3 free items we give you that don't come out of your 6 is audio interface.
Okay.
This is a Fantasy Forever studio, don't forget. So no budget limitations. What do you have now, and what would you replace it with if you had no limits?
Well, I've got 2 different setups, because there's 2 control rooms here. So in Studio A there is an Antelope Orion, the 32, which is amazing because like I use that to travel a lot, because I can take 32 IO in one U rack, and that's it's incredible. So yeah, I mean that I use that a lot. I love the sound of that. And then I've also got a UA Apollo system as well, which is equally amazing.
Popular choice, the Apollo on the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, just because you can record through their plugins is like, that's I do that on vocals all the time.
But what's it going to be for the Forever Studio?
Before you choose, though, choose,
I'll go on. Yeah.
Do you ever use the Unison plugins, like the real-time plugins for guitar processing? Do you ever record through those, or is it all because you've got so many other things?
Not for guitars, no. I tend to use a lot of analog outboard for guitars. I use the Unison stuff though for like vocals sometimes. I think they sound amazing, really good.
So what's it going to be?
It'll probably be the Antelope Orion, because of the huge amount of I/O that I could fit in one U, and
nice.
And it's just one USB out. So yeah, I'd probably say that.
Okay, nice.
All right.
So now things get a bit more challenging. But maybe before we move on to your first item, let's talk about all those guitar heads and stuff behind you. And I mean, how do the virtual versions compare? Of like, I mean, do you ever go down the plug-in route for guitars? I mean, I guess there's no point if you've got that gear right, or
Well,
I mean,
I actually made one with we have one with STL Tones.
Okay.
They do a plugin called Tone Hub, and I have a pack that's out for it, which has like loads of my amps with all the the mics in the exact places that I like them, and that is it's scary how close that is. We were like, when we were kind of putting the sounds together for it, and I was A/B-ing between the the real amp and the plug-in version. It was like, it was very, very close. I still have all my heads because I prefer to still use them, but for people who don't have like a huge collection of heads and stuff, like I think software has just come an unbelievably long way from where we used to be.
and I guess, I mean, it must be useful if you are traveling to other studios to have those recreations of all your favorite setups and your heads. You can take them with you as plugins, even if it's just for demoing stuff out.
Yeah, totally. I mean, sometimes it's like, oh, I just wish I had that one amp with me, and it's like I can just load my plugin now and it's there.
Yeah.
So that's been incredible for that.
Okay, well, let's go on to item number 1 of your 6. Now, so you've got an audio interface, you've got your DAW, and you've got a Mac.
Okay.
And you have nothing else apart from this awesome LA room and Rockfield's live room.
Apart from that, you've got
Apart
nothing.
from that, what's
good
going
start.
to be your first item?
It's got to be monitors, surely, because I won't be able to hear anything otherwise.
Yeah. I'm glad you
Correct.
spotted that. Sometimes people get to like item number 3 before they realise they can't hear anything.
Yeah. So my monitors, I use Yamaha NS10s. That has been all I've used for I don't know how many years.
That's a weak choice for a fantasy studio, though, isn't it? You can't.
I love them. I love them. I would take those every day.
Really?
Yeah. But the trick with the NS10 is everyone always thinks they sound really thin and like, but you've got to pair it with a subwoofer. So I use it with a Genelec 7360 sub, and those two together, it's killer because the Genelec gives all the low end that you miss out of the NS10s, and then the 10s are just like a super fast sounding speaker where it exposes so many problems for me in like the high mids, and like that system together is amazing.
I mean, that's the thing though. You're talking about a system here. I mean, you're going to need an amp. You're going to need NS10s. That's 3 items with a subwoofer.
It sounds
Surely
like
that. Surely
No,
you give me that.
no bundles.
Come on.
No, you're bundling. No bundling.
no.
No bundling. What amp are you using though? For you got a Bryston on the NS10s or?
I'm using a quad in one room, and
Very
I've got
nice.
another pair of NS10s in the other studio, and that is one of the old Yamaha amps that I believe were kind of made for the NS10s at
Oh
that
wow.
time.
Okay.
and
Not easy
they
to
sound
find.
no. And yeah, they sound great with it.
Okay, so are you still choosing NS10s for your fantasy studio?
Yeah, I'm going with it. I'm sticking with my choice.
So
Oh,
are we-
okay.
I think we'll decide on this.
We'll give
This-
him an amp, right?
You can have an amp. I think that's kind of thrown in as part of the monitoring bundle.
You
Can
can't.
I have a
Pains
Genelec
me.
subwoofer as well?
No, you can't. No, that's a separate
No.
item. That's a separate item.
No.
But you're still going to go for it. This is brave. You're going to go for the NS10s with an amp. And no
I'm probably the only person who's going to pick NS10s on your show. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you are actually. Yeah.
Yeah, most
I
people
just-
choose like £60,000 focals, or they just go, what's the most expensive speaker I can get? But yeah.
I think the whole thing is what speaker do you understand the most? So like that's it for me. Like I get quite confused when I put on other monitors because I'm like, I don't know what I'm listening to, but like I just feel safe with the 10. So yeah,
Fine.
And so with that, the clarity in the mid-range and how revealing it is, and how, I mean, a lot of people say they're super uninteresting speakers, or they're kind of ugly to listen to, but how important is that for you mixing rock music and understanding that middle range?
It's like, especially for rock music, that's why it's such a great monitor for it, because in rock music you've got so many guitars competing with where the vocals are, and that monitor just reveals everything for you. And it's that old saying, but it's true. It's like if you get it sounding good on NS10s, it does translate really well. And I think that's the trick. It's like, they don't sound nice to listen to, but the whole point is to get them to kind of sound good, and then,
So I mean, this is quite a wide scoping question, because obviously the genuine answer is, well, it depends on the song. But like, I mean, do you find when mixing and layering up guitars and capturing guitars together, do you find these kind of problem areas in the frequency range where you're having to carve stuff out a lot? I mean, because like you say, especially, I guess it depends on the type of song, but I mean, any advice for people that are trying to stack and make that kind of thick sound without them all becoming mush and mud?
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely be careful how much you filter out, because you actually, the more you start doing those notches everywhere, you just start removing good stuff. Like, yes, it will sound horrible if you boost it 20 dB and find this resonant thing, but sometimes that's contributing to the. So like, that's a tough one that you have to get right. I think like you don't always need as many guitars as you think, and it comes back to what I was saying about the drums. It's like I always notice, especially on demos and things like that, where they can't get a great drum sound or something, that they just pile on all these guitars to kind of cover it up. But I think the more you focus on the foundation bit, the less you actually need, because things naturally sound wider anyway then. And so
I guess they get given their own room by not competing, so you can turn them up or thicken them up, or
yeah. But I think also like try and use kind of tones that complement each other. So sometimes you might have like a heavy guitar part, but you want some clarity, so you could use like, say, like a heavy amp, like a 5150 or something, but then use a Marshall to kind of back down a bit, and that will give you the clarity of the strings coming through. And so there's ways you can use layering to enhance the sound, rather than just adding stuff that's not really adding up in the end.
So are you talking about two different guitar parts there, one through the 5150 and one through the Marshall?
Yeah.
Are you talking about reamping?
Yeah.
Do you do any of that?
Or run them together,
Wow, any interesting through your career of recording, like we said in the intro, some quite major names there. From working with others, any interesting ways and methods of working from guitarists that have come through your studio that have surprised you, that the way they get their tone or the way they want to be recorded, either from them working in other studios or trying something new? I mean, it's
I guess when I was recording Bring Me the Horizon, like Lee Mallia's got an amazing tone just in himself. He's like, whatever mic you put up, he'll make it sound great. And I think, without getting technical about it, it's his playing style, and it's like, that is such a huge contributing factor to any guitar sound, really. It's
do most guitarists know what they want in the studio? You find when they come to you, or is there?
I think most guitarists tend to be quite open in terms of what we should go for a record. I can't think of anyone that's ever forced, like a certain type of amp or whatever. We especially because like there's so many heads here. Most of the time, most guitarists want to try things and go, oh, I didn't even think about trying, using that, and that works. So I think in the studio, because you're not kind of displaying that amp out live, so it's like, let's just go with what works on the recording.
Yeah.
And if you said we don't want to get too technical, but just we're very happy to get technical. If you want to get technical about whether it's playing styles or whether it's like just the nuts and bolts of the recording process, like what are some of those things you said? Don't want to get too technical. What were you thinking? Where was your mind going at that moment when you were going to go down the rabbit hole?
Is this in relation to recording?
Yeah.
Bring Me the Horizon?
Or? Yeah.
It was just to get like a really powerful representation of his sound, and it was, a lot of the songs had, you know, they had distinctive kind of sonic characters to them, so it was matching the guitar tones up with the rest of it. One thing that Lee introduced me to, which I now swear by, is using a clon pedal. Like luckily in the studio that we were in, they had an original one, which like is crazy money right now, I think.
So are you on the hunt for one?
No, I'm not. I'm not spending that much on one. But I got one. I ended up buying J-Rocket make one called the Archer, and it's one of those pedals that I was like, why didn't I buy this years ago? It's like, it's just so, I can't work out what it's doing, but it just makes the guitar sound clearer, and it doesn't change the tone of the amp. It's just like a clarity thing for me.
Even though it's an overdrive distortion box, right?
Yeah, but it doesn't, it's not like when you put a tube screamer in front of an amp and you get this kind of frequency shift. It doesn't tend to do that. It just kind of gives the amp a nice boost, and you know, like you can hear the strings like way clearer as they ring. So I pretty much always track with that pedal now. I think it's amazing.
Nice.
Well, is that going on the list? Is that going to be your number 2 item?
Item number 2. Let's move on and let's see where you get to. So you've got your NS10s now. Item number 2.
Item number 2. Oof. Well, would it be preamps next? I guess, wouldn't it?
Well, it's up to you. It's up to you. I mean, you don't. You can have a desk if you want some pre's included.
Okay.
You can have whatever you want. You've got 6 items, but they can be anything. Just no bundles. No bundles.
Okay. Desk wise, I mean, I love my Audient ASP, but my all-time favorite is like an SSL G series. I love that desk, and yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of records on those consoles, and there's just something about the sounds on them. They just sound amazing. The EQs are like, I don't know, just everything about it is like rock and roll to me. I love those.
That's interesting as well, because a lot of people would go might go Neve for the kind of harder, edgier tones, but like you love the SSL, because the SSL is often branded as a more poppy version of a mixing desk, I guess, if you could be that. If you could, you know what I mean? Like, if you were gonna be
I guess
really
so.
cliched.
I guess so. But yeah, no, I still prefer the SSL. I love the layout of the G. Everything is in the right place for me. And it's just the sound of it. Like, you know, you can every part of it has a sound. Like, you know, even going out through the output matrix rather than direct, that has a different sound to it. Like, so there's the compressors on there are like incredible, and you know, they all, you know, every SSL like kind of sounds a little different sometimes, and kind of, you know,
that's
I like
a good
that.
thing, right? Yeah, that is.
Yeah. It's good. But yeah, like I definitely love that. So that would be my console choice.
Nice. And do you have a specific one? Is there one that you've used which you, above all other SSLs, if they all sound different, what's the one that you would have? You're allowed to steal from another studio.
I can steal. The one at Metropolis Studio B is one I really like. That room is also one of the best control rooms I've ever heard. It sounds incredible in there. But yeah, that one.
Cool. Let's take it. Let's take it away from them.
Yeah.
Sorry, Metropolis.
Sorry, Metropolis. Rockfield's lost their live room. Metropolis has lost their desk. This is good. Let's decimate the industry.
Oh, no.
Okay, so item number 3 is creeping up now.
Okay, item number 3.
Are you going to have a guitar? You've got to have a guitar, right?
Surely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess it's rock music, so it's got to be something with humbuckers. Les Paul Custom. That's a good solid guitar.
Yeah.
Guitars are hard. You can't make me pick guitars. That's really hard.
Yeah. Well, here we are.
It's your forever studio. It's your 6 items. I mean, yeah. This is the nature of the podcast, I'm afraid.
Okay, I'll tell you what then. I guess I'd go for a PRS, because there are way more variations in tones. on those.
Okay.
So that would keep me going because I could get a lot of different sounds out of those.
Okay, I guess there's like it's like what you were saying about the amp heads. There's a kind of like the guitars and the amps that you want to be seen with on stage, but the ones that actually do their job in the studio. And
Yeah.
and I guess there's
Yeah,
there's probably a lot of bands that won't want to admit what amps and what guitars they've used actually on the record.
Yeah, maybe for endorsement reasons.
Yeah.
But I've got like a PRS Custom 24S2, and that takes me from lots of different tones. It's solid and feels good to play, so I think that would be my choice there then.
Is it one of the ones behind you that we can see? Is it the
no, it's not
No.
actually. It's in another rack over there.
another rack of guitars? Oh, nice.
Ludicrous. So tell us a bit more about your own playing then, because you've gone for this PRS. Tell us about the way that, I mean, how did you get into this whole thing? You must love rock music from the outset.
It started off when I discovered Oasis, who are my favourite band in the world.
Yeah.
But they just they got me into music, and as most people do when they discover Oasis, is try and pick up the guitar and try and play those songs, and
I'm guilty.
that's what happened. Yeah, they're easy, and they're easy to play songs, and that's what got me into it. And then as I kind of developed that love for guitar, I started to get into recording then, like recording myself, and then it then became about, well, how do I get the guitar sounds in my head to come out the speakers? And that was kind of the journey for me, if you like. But I mean, I don't get to play a lot anymore, really, which I kind of hop on now and again if I need to, if I've got an idea for a part that I want to show, or sometimes if I'm even playing on a song.
So you're not like Christopher Walken in Wayne's World, just going in there and ripping out the guitar solo, not sort of wading in.
It wouldn't be a good solo.
You mean you obviously are quite comfortable with stepping back, but a lot of people are kind of like, oh, just give it to me, let me play on the record.
I think I think you've got to balance it. Obviously, you want the artist to be to sound the best they can. There's often times where someone's just struggling with a part, and you just know you can do it, and as long as everyone's okay with it, if you need to, then but most of the time, obviously it's more important to try and get the artist to get it done.
So, item number 4.
Okay, it will probably be. Well, I've got preamps now because I've got my SSL.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'd probably take. I've got a pair of units called Roger Mayer 456. They are.
You say? Is that a bundle?
Oh, is that? But I'll take one then. Fine. I'll have one.
Brutal.
I like the one.
Brutal.
So sometimes on the podcast when we do the bundle thing, people fight us, and you're just like, oh god, okay, whatever.
I'll do everything in mono. It's fine.
Yes, back to mono.
But that unit is incredible. A guy called Sean Ganocki showed me them a long time ago, and because him and another producer friend of mine, Dave Ringer, they kept raving on about these units, and their recordings sound incredible. And I was like, okay, what are you using then? And then I got one. And it's incredible. It's basically a unit that simulates going onto tape, and it just does something killer. Like I always put it on the end of my recording chain before I hit the AD converter, and I don't know what it's doing, but when you turn them off, it just doesn't sound as good.
Do you actually buy them as a match pair? Because I think if you're buying them as a match pair, that's kind of not a bundle, right? You buy mics as match pairs.
Hang on. There's a stereo version. There is a stereo one. Maybe not.
I've got the 500 series ones, which you don't buy as a match pair, but I think you'd be stupid not to, because once you get one, you will shortly realise you need another one.
Are we going to let it slide, Will? Are we going to let it Phil's?
I have found a stereo version, so we
Okay,
will
I'll
allow
take
it.
that one.
Yeah. Okay.
do
It's
me.
permitted.
Ah, see, just because you didn't fight us, we caved anyway. It was nice. Like, yeah. So, item number 5. We're racing to.
You need a microphone, aren't you, Romesh?
Microphone. Okay. It's the one I'm actually using now. It will probably be the JZ V67. This is a mic that I discovered maybe a year or so ago, and it is like, it's just blown me away. Like in here, there's a huge variety of microphones that I've got, U47, U87s, like loads of stuff, and this mic has just beaten them all a lot of the time.
Wow.
So yeah, it's probably going to be that. It's very detailed. They did explain to me why, and I don't understand. It's something to do with the way they make the capsule, but it's like, it's super clear. I don't have to EQ it very much at all with most singers. And yeah, like I've been loving them, and they're also great for overheads and like acoustic guitars and all sorts. So,
and I guess if you've got that awesome rock-filled room, one mic on the drum kit, you'll still get an amazing sound.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But it does limit your options slightly with recording. I mean, would you actually get everybody in the room and record the whole band on a single track, or are you going to do them at different points?
Well, you're giving me a very limited choice with 6 options, so I'm going to have to be creative. I put them all in the room and balance the sound out in the room and see what happens there.
Like the old recordings, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Sun Studios. I mean, would you actually do that? Would you do that ever? Have you ever done that, or are you much more close miking everything? What's your approach there?
I'm mainly, I mean, I think with the kind of the sound of records I make, I guess, there's a lot of close mics going on. I'm not. I'm totally not afraid to not, though. Like, there have been times, where we've just put room mics out, but most of the time, because especially with drums, I want the closeness of the snare and the kick and all that stuff. So,
and do you find yourself doing much in terms of drum replacement or overdubbing, like putting amps in boxes and getting them to crazy volumes and stuff like that? I mean, do you go, because of the options now, you can approach rock music recording in a kind of really, really cut and paste way if you really wanted to. Yeah,
I mean, for me, the most important thing to me is to get the drums as close as possible at the source. That's hugely important. So like, I'll whatever it takes EQ wise, I'll want to get it into, I want it to sound how I want it to. But definitely, like, I mean, it's rock music. Sometimes I'll augment stuff with a sample or something if I need to, especially if I need a bit more consistency. I'll take hits of the actual kit so I can use those.
So you'll drum replace, but with the same drums as such. A perfect instance of that snare.
Yeah, I think that the idea though is only if you need to, really. And I always try and make sure that if I'm doing that, then the real mics are like way in front, and I'm not doing a full replacement or anything.
And what about things like recording to clicks and stuff? Because that can, I mean, just the entry point to studio recording for a lot of bands can be quite a different experience. You can be quite a tight band on stage and with your show, and then not be able to deliver in the studio. I mean, speaking of Oasis, for instance, and a lot of other bands who've got rid of drummers or replaced certain musicians because of the studio side of the experience. I mean, look, the Foo Fighters and.
Yeah, I find that, I mean, I usually use a click, but then we may not we may just use it as a guide, but we won't like edit straight to it if the music if it needs to breathe a bit more. But I think there's definitely some players who struggle playing to the click, and that's probably where the psychology side of being a producer comes into play. And there are ways to kind of Well, I mean, I've certainly noticed, like, if a drummer can't play to, if I've got everyone set up in the room together and the drummer's like not able to keep up with the click, sometimes just recording the band as a guide and putting that in their headphones, so so everyone's not playing, but they're playing to the song, and nothing else is kind of wavering. That seems to help get the drummer to play a lot closer to the click.
And what
so
about
it's like a rough take. You just do like a one pass through as a rough, and then that's your guide for the others.
I've noticed if everyone playing, if it's not working with everyone playing together, then you can do it that way, or you record them and you just map. You get your DAW to map out a click according to how they're playing it. That's another option as well.
And there's, I guess, I mean, I've heard of techniques where it's quite often you might put the metronome on just like that kind of click, but double timing or half timing the metronome as well. Some people prefer
totally
a much fast.
And also another cool trick is to use a loop or like a percussion loop, or and you can have the click but then have a loop underneath which is kind of giving a groove or something, and that also helps.
Stops it making it feel so like scientific and like
so that's another thing. Like a shaker can be really helpful.
I guess I was just thinking of tips for people listening that maybe haven't been to the studio yet but quite accomplished musicians or guitarists. It's kind of like these are good things for them to try before they go to the studio, because it can.
Yeah, I definitely think, like, especially with almost everyone having the capability of having some kind of recording program at home now, if you are going into the studio, it's totally worth just like opening up that recording program you've got and just practicing playing to the click before you go in, because I think the main thing for me when I'm working with an artist is if I can spend less time trying to get them to play the part correctly, I can spend more time trying new things out and trying different amps and stuff. If I'm spending all that time just to get them to play the bare part right, that it's obviously eating up a lot of time. So the more the musician can do at home, the better. The better use of time that you'll make.
So where are we now, Will? Was this item number 5?
We've got one left. We've had 5.
One left.
It's number 6
item
already.
Number 6.
Yeah.
Okay, it's got to be a compressor of some sort, I think.
Okay, so you've got one in the G series, though, right?
I have, yeah. It's a tough one. I think I'm still gonna say, an 1176, a blue stripe, 1176.
Very nice.
Because that I love that on vocals. That's my kind of go-to.
I mean, there is a hack on this, isn't there, Will? We found the isn't 1178 the stereo version?
Oh, the stereo version, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
That was
Drew who came out with that.
Drew Bang. Yes.
Okay.
That was his selection. I didn't actually know about the 1178. You don't see them that often.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the blue stripe one then?
It's just like so the blue stripe was the early revision of it, and I think just on vocals it does something to the top end on the high frequencies on a vocal that I can't get out of a blackface. I don't know, it sounds more in your face to me, and yeah, I think there's something with the high mids as well that it feels like it grabs them in a different way to the blackface one. So I've always like loved that compressor.
So do you have that in your studio now, or have you just got?
I've got one in Studio B, which I use all my vocals hit that on the way in, and then when I'm inside the DAW, I may even use UA make a great blue stripe plugin, and I may go even further with that again afterwards. But I always tend to use the blue stripe on the way in as well. I'm a big fan of like with vocals like compressing on the way in, because I feel that that gives the singer the sound of that compression. It's a more exciting sound, and you get a better vocal performance out of them that way, I think, because they're hearing it sounding more exciting as they're singing it. So I always track with compression in.
And because you track a lot of bands where there's a lot more aggression in the vocals, shall we say? So there's a lot more sort of screaming or not singing. Does the 1176 do anything in particular which is useful for that style?
Yeah, I think it's just like the distortion it brings in, and it just gives you a lot of aggression. I'm certainly not afraid for that needle to be slammed all the way sometimes, like, and
on the way in.
Yeah, if it sounds good, I'm cool with that. I mean, I wouldn't say that's, I'm always doing that. I'm usually kind of I don't know, like 6 to 8 dB, but there are times, like, if it is doing that and like it sounds good when I'm listening to it, then I'll commit. I'm especially, well, with anything I'm recording, I'm quite a big fan of just committing on the way in. So like, even when I'm miking up guitar amps and I've got multiple mics, I will sum those to one channel and they will be recorded as one. I will get the blend in the recording stage and then commit it down to one, because I find otherwise that you never finish a project, because you're always changing the blend in the later on. And it becomes a nightmare to look at, because for every guitar part you've got like 4 channels, and it's just like, I just want to see one guitar, and that's the sound that we loved when recording. I always take a DI as well, so like if I have made a wrong choice, that's my kind of undo. I can go back and send it through a different amp. But yeah, like I'm more than happy to commit stuff, because it makes the mix easier as well. You don't have to do so much in the mix if you've kind of made those decisions in the recording stage.
Yeah,
and what about some of those? Are there any times where you've done something slightly off kilter, maybe, and committed it and been like, uh-oh? I saw the other day you posted something to Instagram which was recording with the tiniest amp I've ever seen. Can you tell us what were you on about? What was going on there?
That was so I'll use those sometimes to fill in like a specific frequency space. I mean, I think we were using it for like we were going from a big section of the song and I wanted it to go really small. And
what was it exactly you were using?
There's nothing smaller than an amp that's this big.
What was the little amp though? What was it, like one of those little?
It's a little Marshall. I think it's an MS2. It's a micro stack, with a very expensive Coles ribbon mic on it. But I've done that quite a bit. Like they're really cool sometimes to, like, if you want the song to break down to a really thin sound. Like sometimes that's a little fun thing to try out.
Well, it kind of makes more sense in a way than taking a recording of a huge amp and EQing the life out of it to try and make it sound small. It's just like
it's kind of the equivalent of like high passing thing, but it sounds different because you're using a very small speaker that can't put out those low end frequencies anyway. So and they're also great sometimes just for, like, if there's a big riff or something, and sometimes you just want a little nasty frequency just tucked in there somewhere, and just do a pass through that, and it's quite cool.
So, Will,
you have one luxury item as well. Should we do the rundown first?
Let's do the rundown. Let's picture the scene, Will, for us, and then we can see if there's any last minute changes to the final choices before we move on to the luxury item.
Okay, we're in the Hollywood Hills in Los Angeles, overlooking the smog. The streets are empty. The birds are tweeting. You're looking out over your swimming pool, and then you look to your left. You have a nice big fat Mac, probably the most expensive one, right, Romesh? Like the 50 grand one.
Yeah.
Done. You have Nuendo that you're recording into via an Antelope Orion 32, and you're listening back through Yamaha NS10 monitors. You're mixing on an SSL G series stolen from Metropolis Studio B. You're rocking out with your PRS Custom 24S2 guitar, and you are compressing. You're not compressing. No, what are you doing with the Roger Mayer 456 stereo? You're getting the sound of tape before you actually hit your A to D. Yeah. With the Jay-Z V67, you are recording, and for those incredible, rich vocal sounds, you're using a Yuri 1176 Blue Stripe compressor. How does that sound?
That sounds like heaven to me.
And it's all inside Rockfield's live room in the
yeah, of course.
Nice. Brilliant. Okay, so luxury item. So luxury item isn't gear related. Something that maybe you've always taken to the studio with you, or or something that you wish you had in the studio every day, and you're like, oh, I can't believe we have to go out for this. But yeah, have a think about a luxury item that's not a piece of gear. What would you have in
that's
that?
That's not
same...
a piece of gear.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I just discovered AeroPress recently.
Oh.
The coffee. And that, that is incredible. I love that, and we have one in the studio as well, and I have one at home. So it's probably got to be that, because everyone loves coffee in the studio, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it'd have to be that.
I think the last 4 podcasts, or quite a few of the last ones, have all been coffee. Like there's something, people are coffee mad in the studios. But we've had robot baristas, so just an AeroPress feels pretty lightweight. I think you've been a good guy there. You haven't asked for some kind of robot barista like some.
He's
of our
got a $14,000 compressor. Like it's fine.
yeah, sure.
You can have like an AeroPress. I'm cool with that.
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely fine. Nice. Well, that's the Forever Studio. I mean, do you think you can work there? I think you could work there. It sounds pretty good.
It'd be a struggle, but I think I could. Yeah. No, that sounds great to me.
Yeah, I think our 6-item studio isn't necessarily the perfect experience for somebody that has how many guitar heads I can see behind you now, like 10. So what's coming up for you next? I mean, are you back recording in this current climate? Are you managing to get bands in? Have you got stuff booked?
Yeah, I'm mixing a US artist at the moment. We're just coming to the end of mixing on that record. I've been quite busy because I run an audio community online called Control Room. So I've been quite busy with that because we have like Q&As with producers and stuff in there, and we do a lot of things. So that's kind of kept me busy. But yeah, like obviously in these current times, I am still have artists coming in here, but in a safe, done as safe as we can. But yeah, I mean, those 3 things are kind of keeping me busy.
Okay, well, excellent. I guess all that's left to say is thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
No worries, and hopefully, I feel like it's a bit of a downer because you've ended up with less gear than you have now. I mean, for some people that come on the podcast, they get to get items that they, I suppose you got the SSL. The SSL. I mean, that's
you can do a lot with that.
Yeah, that's a significant. That's a significant buy. But anyway, that's all that's left to say. Is thank you so much, and to everybody who listened in as well. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, well, thank you. We've been coming to you from Guitar.com live. If you enjoyed this podcast, we've got heaps of fantastic people lined up, all of whom we will be coercing into building their fantasy forever studio within our strict but totally arbitrary guidelines. We've got loads of guests coming up, people like Claude Von Stroke, we've got Mason, Grammy Award-winning producers, Austin Jux Chandler, Riton, Alex Metric. We're going to be back every Tuesday, so come back for us then. Don't miss it. Subscribe, follow, share, tell your friends. Maybe... Yeah,
send us fan mail.
Maybe.
Send us fan mail, yeah. Well, fan mail. Okay, nice. Well, thank you so much, Romesh, and have a happy time, and hope things when things get back to normal, we'll come and see you in person.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.